This episode of the Free Lunch Podcast is brought to you by the Selma Project, an initiative created to infuse hope and inspiration into the youth of Selma, Alabama through culture, art, and entertainment. It is a call on natives and friends of the Selma movement to use their gifts, talents, and resources to pave a road of success for future generations. And brought to you by faithful listeners everywhere. And now to the show. One time, two time, three. See me shine, put some light on their mind, illuminate the dark, give them sight if they blind, and see me shine for the ones that.
Welcome to the Free Lunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement. This is your boy Tight, also known as JD, and I got my man with me, B Jeezy. B Jeezy, what's happening?
You know what it is, BG27 Kid, Free Lunch Podcast. What up?
Hip hop hooray! Hip hop hooray!
Well, you wild boy. You wild boy.
Man, Bossip Badass came out with that new album, man, and I've been rocking it ever since. Huge Bossip Badass fan, man.
Bossip back. I'm glad to see him back on the scene, too. Yeah, I'm glad to see him back on the scene.
Yeah, I had to clarify.
Bossip was that original intro to the Freelance Podcast for a minute. We gonna show the world. Bossip was cracking the show off there in the early stages.
He was until we were basically told we could not use.
We couldn't use it. Copyright violation. Thank you, SoundCloud.
So we had to find some other intro music, but again, I am a huge supporter of Bossip. No longer left, because he said you gotta remove the left from it. But I am a huge supporter of Bossip, and that's one of the songs on his new album. And for those that enjoy music, I actually like this album. So Have you heard it?
I've heard some cuts from it, but I know Bossip, man. I can remember being introduced to Bossip from some of my line brothers, that Mobile section of that line.
Me?
Yeah, you. And,
I introduced him because I
introduced. And the Faux Dog.
No, because I introduced him.
And KG.
Man. I told.
Y'all all was listening to it, man.
Yeah, I told the Faux Dog. And no, you can ask him. I put him on Bossip, and he refused to accept Bossip, and it took him a minute, but he got on board. And like you said, everybody from Mobile started riding to it. But because you got to remember, I was coming from H-Town, so I was introduced to Bossip when I was living in H-Town. And interning. So let's get the record straight now. Get the Faux Dog on this interview.
This should be good. This should be good. Y'all might see this debate on Instagram.
We may see this debate on Instagram.
We might see this one.
Yeah.
Spark it up.
So with that being said, I just enjoy the album. So if you enjoy good music, then definitely check out the latest album from Bossip. How was your weekend, sir?
Oh man, actually spent some time with my cousin. Just graduated from high school. It's the cousin that had me in LA a few weeks ago. She was actually one of the Disney Dreamers, that Steve Harvey thing that he talks about every year with high school students. So she was one of those, and she's been going all over the country doing all types of stuff. So we got a chance to hang out and talk about some stuff and getting her playing together for college. So that was pretty much it.
I mean, can you give names? Can you give us a shout out? Can you let the people celebrate with her?
Oh yeah. Shanicia, we call her Money. She probably gonna kill me when she hear it though. But she's actually my second cousin. My first cousin's daughter. That's really doing big things. She has a story to tell, and we probably need to get her on here. She has really set out to use her life as an instrument to help other young people that might be going through some of the same type of adversities that she's gone through. So she's got a story to tell, and she's a bright spirit. So she follows us on Instagram. I don't know what Instagram name is.
I know she's doing. Before the show over with, can you give her Instagram name?
If I can find it, I surely will.
Yeah, she
Sure
follows us
will.
on Instagram, and if before the show end, I think she deserves a shout out. But while you say that, you actually gave me a thought because we had already been prepping and we've been planning to get a few of our mentees and young people on the podcast. And I really think we need to dedicate a month in this summer to highlight some of these young folks. So I know two of mine. They basically told me they won't be available until after so
They graduate.
So once they graduate and we can schedule some time, man. Let's get these young people on the air for a month, and let's just highlight and celebrate the young folks and what they're doing, and hopefully they can share with you all the listeners. Maybe I'm hoping some of the ways we've inspired them and we've influenced them, because essentially that's what this whole thing is about. It's about inspiring. It's about being bridge builders and walking with the young folks and teaching them what we've learned along the way, and hopefully doing the same as we share our thoughts on this podcast.
Yeah, and they got something to say. Her Instagram is _JST SHAY _JST SHAY. So that basically means _just Shay. She's got a blog and stuff going too. So I'm really, really proud of her. I had a couple of cousins to graduate this past May or whatever you want to say. So it's a lot of things going on to be excited and happy about. What you got going on?
Let's get them on the show. Well,
yeah, we'll do that.
Let's get them on the show. Well, for me, had an awesome weekend, busy weekend, and you kind of coined the phrase #NeverNotWorking, which really has stuck with me. And we need to get them shirts made. #NeverNotWorking. I'm telling you.
We finna start selling these shirts too.
I'm telling you, we finna start selling the #NeverNotWorking. We finna start selling the Selma projects. Got mine last week. Was able to wear it on Saturday at one of the events I participated in. People have texted me pictures, and I told them I'm gonna start uploading these to the Instagram. So let's start selling the shirts, the Selma project. Let's get some #NeverNotWorking shirts, and let's just keep this moment. I mean, and of course we got the legendary Free Lunch podcast shirts, which you can see me sporting on Instagram with the likes of Jeff Johnson and one of the events I attended this weekend, sir. So just a lot going on this weekend, busy weekend.
That's the best way to have it, man, is get out there and experience stuff. Go check out these workshops and these meetings and learn something all the time, and then put that information to work. And so that's what it's all about. Never not work.
Yep.
Always something to do.
Hopefully I'm not speaking too fast, but T-shirts coming soon?
Well, you said it, so I guess you're going to make it happen.
Okay.
They say speaking into existence, so there it is.
Okay. Second thing was the blog. Came out with the blog.
Yeah, that boy back to writing again.
Finally found some time. Had been working on that piece. I don't even know. Did you even have a chance to read it yet?
Yeah, I read it, man. Somebody hit me up early this morning talking about you went in on the blog. I said, look at this guy.
Really?
This guy done snuck one in on us. Yeah, early. Say you saving the people. They say you came to help the people. They say you came to help the people, boy. You've been on preaching 2 weeks straight. So
man.
Yeah, early this morning, man.
Yeah, the blog. I've gotten a few hits from it. Actually, before we even get into the blog, shout out to my dad. Man, he really enjoyed last week's podcast. Hit me up today, and really was just, I don't know. He said it struck a chord with him. So I don't very often hear from my dad when it comes to the podcast, as far as him listening to it. I know he listens on occasions, but when he hits me up, I know he's serious, and I know he took something from it. So that's a humbling experience, and and one of those grateful moments that I talk about in the blog, actually, which is true gratitude, and essentially talking about giving my definition of what true gratitude is. I think we talk about being grateful, and I think we have the right intent to be grateful, but I think our actions and our thoughts may actually overshadow our when we speak those words of being grateful and showing gratitude. So that's essentially what the blog talks about. It's up for debate, so not really debate, but discussion. How about that? I think it's a good blog to have some conversation around. So if you haven't read the blog, if you're interested in reading the blog, freelunchpodcast.blogspot.com.
Yeah, it's a good read, and it's funny that you wrote that, because oftentimes when I'm riding down the road, going to whatever my various location is, I usually don't listen to the radio. So you ride in this silence and you start thinking about certain things, and for me, the large part of that gratitude moment is being able to just stop and just really reflect on where you are at this present moment. And then really appreciate the sacrifices that people have made, and just the space that I'm in, and the opportunities that have presented themselves, and this thankfulness, of course. But when you really get into gratitude and just really thinking about what it is, I mean that's on a whole nother level. So that was a great piece.
I think the key takeaway and the hidden gem in that particular post really is the liberation that comes from true gratitude. And what I mean by that is you have confirmation that tomorrow is taken care of, because it was proven yesterday and the day before, or today and yesterday. The liberation then becomes that tomorrow the result is the same. And when you can grasp that concept, your focus shifts from focusing on tomorrow, and then you're able to concentrate on today. And by concentrating on today, you have the confidence that you can then fulfill your destiny, because tomorrow is guaranteed.
Strong word, freedom. And I think that's what we're all trying to get to. We're trying to get to that point of just being free.
Yep.
And being able to function fully in that freedom.
Yep.
So,
that's the reason why. The reason why we do the podcast. It's liberating. It's therapeutic, and it's essentially where we hope we can motivate and inspire the next. For those, first off, our listeners. I think if we can motivate and inspire them to follow their dreams, and in following your dreams, having gratitude and being liberated, then, in the words of Mr. Thomas from Rick and Smiley, we done did our job.
Did our job.
So I appreciate it, man. Thank you for reading it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Yep. Let's get to it, man. No vine for today.
What?
No vine for today.
We not breaking no contractual agreements, are we?
No.
Okay, we're good.
No, yeah, we good. I was only contractually obligated to give two a month.
Okay, so we good on that.
We good on
no violation. Well, what's on your cotton picking, pea picking,
knee jerking, XXX rated, misguided mind? So I kind of, you and I reached out to you today, and really was introduced to an article a few weeks ago. It was written on Deadspin. Not sure how familiar you are with the site, but it was actually written on Deadspin, centered around Jason Whitlock and the upcoming Undefeated website that's going to essentially be driven and powered by ESPN.com. Mm-hmm. Read the article that was written on Deadspin, found it extremely interesting, and I don't really so much want to get into the debate or the commentary that was shared on Deadspin around Jason Whitlock and his leadership abilities, because I believe there's always two sides to a story, and Deadspin writes it from their perspective. But I am interested in essentially the release of the Undefeated.com playbook. For those that listen to the podcast, know that I do agree with Mr. Whitlock's stance on a number of issues when it comes to race and relations, and I also highly support the upcoming Undefeated.com, the project that he is essentially putting on.
Well, I'll just preface it with Jason Whitlock and me hearing some of his work, hearing him on the radio show, reading some of his articles. If you do get an opportunity, I highly recommend that you do search him and see some of his work. But when you read and get into it, you see that, this is not just your average Joe Blow black journalist that's writing to fit into the establishment. This is a guy that is very strong in his opinions, strong in his perspective, and he presents it in the mediums. And so I can really appreciate that, because in a lot of his pieces, he's focusing not only on issues that I can relate to that are going on in the community and things like that, but his perspective and the way that he is voicing and approaching and putting some of these issues on a platform is the same way that I would do it. And so you have to have some respect for the man in an environment that he's the minority. Not only is he the minority because of his race, but in my opinion, he's the minority because in his journalism, he's trying to say something. He's giving you substance. And seeing some of the other press releases that he's made about this project, this Black Grantland Undefeated project, is something worth getting excited about, because it's going to really give, in my opinion, journalism the way that people can really grow from. And that's what we're really in need of, that, especially in our community. We're in need of some journalism and some information being given out in a complete fashion that basically raises our awareness and increases our knowledge about what's going on in the world around us.
And just the significance of that project alone has really had me enthused and really had me wanting to understand and know what they were doing behind the curtain. Deadspin led us behind the curtain. I don't know how loyal or how great it is to get there. They've gotten their hands on the actual playbook. Yeah, which I kind of question the
motive behind
that entire piece. I don't really want to use today's platform to discuss that motive, but I do want to use it to kind of share what's in the playbook. So my first thing is for those that are listening on the podcast to pause here and take an opportunity to go to deadspin.com and search for the actual playbook, because I think prior to listening to the remainder of today's show, you should really take a moment and read the playbook, because the Undefeated.com playbook really highlights and strategically identifies what their mission is and what their goal is. And essentially a lot of that is around uplifting and providing a black perspective. And you don't have to always agree with what he writes. There are a number of pieces that he's written that I may not have agreed with, but I respect the fact that he's willing to go out and do his due diligence to provide a perspective that he believes in. So this isn't to parade Mr. Whitlock, or this isn't to this podcast isn't to downgrade what Deadspin kind of criticizes his leadership skills, but this is more or less to really have a discussion around the playbook But more specifically, there's a section in the playbook, the blueprint, that really identifies the ultimate agenda of what he wants to accomplish with the Undefeated. And after reading the blueprint, which is the opening section, I saw something in there that both BG and I have spoken about, but I kind of wanted to raise it as a topic for today. There are a number of different founders that he mentioned in the beginning of the book, but the relevance in those individuals was their ability to provide a journalistic perspective on the happenings of the time. And with Sam and with other journalists that he mentioned as one of the founding fathers, being able to, number one, highlight and speak well of the black athletes at the time, but then also provide quote unquote tough love or criticism when he mentioned how Jackie Robinson came to camp overweight, or 10 pounds over. I believe it was Jackie Robinson. I have to go back and kind of clarify the point, that particular point. But the point I'm making is that what this website is attempting to do is to provide a holistic perspective of the current athlete, and then provide both a critique and a criticism of that athlete, based off of how he is portrayed and how he gives back to his community.
Let's get into the topic and make this plain, because there's a lot of meat in this blueprint on a lot of different levels. So I think we just dive into it and get started.
Yeah. So I guess the text message or the line in the blueprint that I read was essentially one, and I'll read a snippet of the blueprint, and it really talks about talk radio and BET have produced intellectual hubs that focus on hip hop and celebrity culture. The top websites directed at a black audience are WorldstarHipHop.com, MediaTakeOut.com, Bossip.com, HotNewHipHop.com, GlobalGrind.com, HipHopDX.com. The Huffington Post blog Black Voices is another top website, but it's all commentary. It lacks the other essential ingredients of journalism. TheGrill.com and TheRoot.com are inspired but inferior, relying primarily on rehashes of other outlets, reporting and predictable liberal commentary that refuses to address some of black America's most blatant pathologies. So here's the line right here, BG, that I wanted us to discuss. The lack of substance and tough love and the focus on hip-hop are the reasons Jay-Z and other rappers have moved ahead of LeBron James and other athletes as the top icons in black culture. The question that I posed and the conversation that I wanted to have today was, who should lead the way as top icons in black America? Hip-hop stars, black athletes, or others? Because essentially the influence that the media plays is 100% relative to the period you were born in. So for us, example, with us being born as 80s babies, hip-hop was essentially leading the way as the culture. If you look back 20 years prior to our birth, and with the integration of basketball and with guys like Bill Russell, and then Dr. J coming along in the 70s and early 80s, integration and black athletes were the primary medium and the primary target for the black reporter and the black journalist. So there's no coincidence that those guys were written about. Not to say that's right or wrong, and then you fast forward to the early to the early 90s and now the 2000s, you see more commentary and more websites around the hip hop star. Two really should be that type icon.
It's obvious that it could be either other two. It could be an athlete or an entertainer because they have the stage, they have the platform. You know, athletes go out, they play in front of thousands, they have endorsements, they're in your face, you see them everywhere, they're being interviewed, and so they have a platform. And then vice versa, you've got the entertainer that performs in front of large crowds, and they do different things. They sell albums, and they're in the magazines, and so they're all on this large scale to where their voice can be heard, and they are in the position to lead the people. And I think we have seen that in different ways, i.e., so Jay-Z said change clothes, and rappers went from wearing big jerseys and large saggy pants and all that, and they changed the style up to a more suited and booted approach. We've seen basketball players not only revolutionize the game, but they revolutionize culture and the clothes that people wear and the language and the lingo. So you see that there is some ability there to lead, but at the end of the day, of course, it's going to come down to, you know, what's in your heart and what's your purpose. Is your purpose to be a leader, or is your purpose just to be an individual and be the largest individual possible? So that's a hard question for me to answer directly, because I personally would like to see everybody that's on that mass media scale speak positively and speak direction to people that come from those neighborhoods that they come from, or people that look like them, or people that are just aspiring to be them one day. Mm-hmm. I would like to see them both take that leadership role. So I don't know. I don't know who's going to step up to the plate and be that for our generation and the ones behind us.
But as I asked that question, I had all day been trying to really understand and figure out what that question meant, right? And I think the underlying and really the true question really centers around the media outlet that we want to. And I actually think this is what Mr. Whitlock is doing. So the question then becomes, what media outlet do we want to allow to lead the way for us to answer that question? You understand what I'm saying? So essentially, he laid out a number of top internet and a number of top internet sites that are the most popular. Worldstar Hip Hop being one of those. A few of those I have not even heard of until I read that article or that playbook. But do we want? I guess the question really becomes: do we want Worldstar Hip Hop to lead the way and be the medium platform for Black America, or do we want a site like theroot.com or blackamericaweb.com or this undefeated.com website, which is essentially a website that Jason is trying to provide a journalistic approach around all aspects of Black America, meaning sports, entertainment, etc. So really, I think the question, I asked your original question, but I think the underlying question really is who should lead the way when it comes to the media platform that we all consume. Because if you think about it, and I was even thinking about this when I was pondering the blueprint. In a lot of ways, what Jason Whitlock is trying to do is introduce a HBCU sort of or a black newspaper type of idea into the webosphere. You see what I'm saying? So when you think of like the Pittsburgh Courier, and when they were essentially, and the guy, I forget his name off the top of my head, but the guy that essentially covered Jackie Robinson. So Wendell covered Jackie Robinson, and what Jason is going to essentially do is follow that blueprint, and he's going to follow LeBron James but he's doing it in a digital format versus via newspaper. So really, the role that the Undefeated is taking on is really a role that was created, and a blueprint that was created back when guys like Sam Lacey or Wendell from the movie 42, when they followed popular black athletes. I said a lot there, but I'll be interested in hearing your commentary.
He is working and implementing this in a journalism world that really is not in tune to black perspective. Mass media is not in tune to what the real black experience is as it relates to culture, sports, entertainment, politics, social issues, all of those things. There is no outlet that really is in tune, that even has the type of staffing to represent that perspective. And so the way that journalism comes to us is that we're not represented. And then with the current quote unquote like black media formats or outlets, you got to look and see like what is the company that's pushing these entities. And then if you look close enough, like these entities are passing through those top dog companies that once again are not in tune to the black experience. And so does that mean that there are certain stipulations that those current black outlets have to even go through to get published or get seen? Are there certain stories that they're presenting and the top people are like, well, no, we don't want to print that. We want to print something else. And they're dictating the type of information that's coming through these black outlets and coming to the people. So you got to ask those questions. And so in converse to that, what Whitlock, I think, is trying to do is, like you were saying, is using that old-fashioned approach, the same approach that was used when if there was nothing but black newspapers that were covering black stores. And so those newspapers and those radio stations, they had a responsibility to represent black news and black issues in a certain kind of way, because if the black people weren't interested in what you were saying, or if you weren't saying something that was in line with what their value system was saying, then they weren't going to support your company. They weren't going to support your product.
But at the same time, the black newspaper was actually doing two things.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jackie Robinson's story kind of illustrates one of those, being that they were highlighting and they were really showing the significance that the black athlete was playing in Black America. That was one role that they were playing, but the second role was tough love that Mr. Whitlock speaks of, and holding them accountable.
Accountability, for sure.
I think that you have to have that accountability, as long as it's done out of love, and as long as it's done fairly. Then you have to hold a number of these black athletes that essentially are growing up in an environment where AAU coaches, we did an article on AAU coaches where they're the exploitation of the black athlete, or you have these black athletes that are growing up without fathers. There has to be some type of accountability. And if the Undefeated.com is going to hold that type of accountability, then I don't see the problem with it. I think there needs to be a shift from, like Mr. Whitlock said, that commentary, and maybe that's what we're doing. I don't know. But I can tell you that there needs to be a shift from commentary to journalism when it comes to the mass media.
And we're the only ones, I think, that get the subpar journalism and stories and things of that nature. I think other communities, maybe just because in sheer volume they have more options, so there's more opportunity to seek out, true, journalism, things that are going to heighten your consciousness. But we're suffering right now because not only like they talked about those like I think they said the root and the griot that basically just pull news from other major news sources. So we're just translating what somebody else said. So it's really important that we get that more complete journalism that creates that communal accountability. We're accountable as a news source, but we're writing these stories to keep the subject of that story accountable in the community. And the community has a voice in all of that. And it just keeps this cycle going to where everyone is holding each other in check. And I think that creates not only this mode of empowerment, but it does take you to a higher level because now you're forced to do the best that you can possibly do. If not, you're going to hear about it. And there's some pride in doing the right thing once you have that process in place.
But then the question becomes the Undefeated versus WorldstarHipHop.com. How do you shift a generation from that's contaminated and addicted to WorldstarHipHop.com to the Undefeated.com?
That is very much a challenge because people are so poisoned. But in that blueprint, throughout the blueprint, he was listing like quotes from past great journalists and things like that. And there was one, this was from, I think, Margaret Mead. And she said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, concerned citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. So for us, when we look at our podcast and we're looking at like, man, what is it that makes us different from a Worldstar Hip Hop or a Shade Room and entities like that that's getting these thousands of views and it's not really anything of true substance, but it really comes down to that tribe. It comes down to that small group of people that are wanting to be informed and wanting to think on a higher plane. Those are the people that you speak to, and then they speak to other people, and it spreads that way. So that's where I find my comfort at. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because it's going to be a major culture shift in getting black people who he really is. He's targeting the underserved, underrepresented in journalism. He's targeting them with this idea and with this endeavor. So it's going to be tough, but I think that in working it and being focused on what the end objective is, that there will be people that will look for it and will support it, but it's going to be tough because, and that's everything, because so people are so far gone and programmed into chasing foolishness that, when things come about that might be of intelligence or real importance and pertinence to what's going on, they tend to ignore that.
I think it's going to be a huge challenge because of that very point you made, is that there's a generation of folks, and essentially a lot of that I would think would be a lot of his target audience that's contaminated, and they are so addicted to going to the Worldstar, and they're so addicted to going to the other sites. I can't even think of them off the top of my head. What is it? Worldstar and you know what I'm saying. MediaTakeout. Yeah, that's the other one. Bossip. They're so addicted to going to those sites that see you got a generation of folks that are growing up now that have never experienced quality. So now you have to introduce them to when they're introduced to quality, how they're going to respond to that quality. You have a whole generation of people. I talk about how I struggle with this ability to believe that people know how to love. I think that because of the mass incarceration, because of the single-parent households, a number of young black folks that were born in the 80s, 90s, never really learned how to love. And because of that, now they're birthing and they're creating children that they can't even teach how to do something that they never knew how to do. Point I'm making is that I think that there's a generation that have been born in this social media reality, and in this reality of Worldstar hip hop, and in this reality of MediaTakeOut and Bossip, that'll look at the Undefeated.com and journalism as archaic and actually as a new venture, when in actuality it's the roots and the pioneering and what was done historically in black culture. And essentially, I guess the point that I'm making is that the project that Mr. Whitlock is taking on is that much more of a challenge, because in the past, where you had the Windows and the Sams and these different artists that were forced to write about black athletes because that was their only means in their community and in their target audience, they were the majority, and they were what people sought out. Now he's taking on a project where he's the minority, and he's going to have to seek out readers, and that's going to be a huge challenge, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, but one advantage that he does have, though, is his connection to ESPN.
Yes.
And to a certain degree, ESPN has bought into his initial planning. So he does, if all goes well, he does have an opportunity to parlay that and use the ESPN audience to capture that attention, and hopefully have his product up to such a level that, people get exposed to it, and then they say, okay, this is different, and this is giving me a different feel about journalism as it relates to black athletes and how it connects to black culture and entertainment, and really having a true journalistic approach. So that ESPN card could prove to be a very beneficial one if all plans out the way that it's being laid out, like in this blueprint and things like that. So he has an advantage with that ESPN connection.
But what did he say though? What's the key point that you did not mention that he said? We will be the hub, the conversation leader, capturing the attention of Tom Joyner, Steve Harvey, and other black talk radio hosts is critical. So even though he has, and he's been powered by the ESPN. Likes of ESPN, he's still relying and dependent upon Tom Joyner and Steve Harvey and the other likes and the other black radio hosts to essentially help him to tell the story that he's trying to tell. Because if you really look at it again, if you know history and you know the role that the black newspaper played and the role that black radio played, they were linked. They were connected on the hip. They were brother and sister.
Exactly.
And so one couldn't survive without the other and vice versa. So even though he has ESPN and even though he's linked to a powerhouse, he still understands the magnitude and the significance of linking himself to black radio. Because in order to stay relevant, and in order to continue to keep the lights on, and in order for ESPN to continue to support this project, Tom Joyner, Steve Harvey, FREELUNCH podcast, are going to have to tell the stories that are written on that website.
Can he do it? Can he get their attention? Can he get them to a place of supporting and collaborating with him?
I don't know, because
major question.
that's a major question because black media has now changed to commentate and to discuss more of what Worldstar hip hop and what Media Takeout and what Bossip are putting out, more so than they are covering the likes of the root.com. You know, so that's gonna be, there's even been a switch in the media. So even though Mr. Whitlock understands the significance of essentially partnering with black radio, you have to find the right, you have to hope that the Tom Joyners and Steve Harveys are interested and they can continue to essentially stay afloat, because at the same time, they're a business too. So if their target audience is reading the Bossips and the MediaTakeout.coms, then are they going to be willing to shift to focus on the Undefeated.com, which is really a minority in this new digital world. Now, Free Lunch Podcast will continue to, if they see stories that are interest to them, will discuss on this podcast. But we don't have today. Let me just say today, because we will. But today we don't have the same 8 million viewers that a Tom Joyner has.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because those shows that you talk about, those big name shows, are syndicated shows, and so there are some people that even though those names are on those shows, morning shows, Tom Joyner and Steve Harvey, there's still some checks and balances that have to be in place before certain things make it on the airways. So it's going to be interesting to watch, to see once it all comes together and once he's established and ready to roll, how many of those entities are supporting the project and directing their followership to this thing that we call Undefeated. So that's going to be interesting to watch, because one of the things that we have highlighted as it relates to community empowerment is the need for cooperation and this collaboration between people who have talents and gifts working for them. So let's see what some of these top dogs are willing to do with a project like this.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the Undefeated.com. Again, you don't have to agree with what Mr. Whitlock writes, or you don't have to agree with his leadership style, because I believe that there are different perspectives on that whole ordeal. But he's really trending, if you really think about it, he's trending he's taking old school philosophy and old school philosophies and blueprints and really implementing those into a modern day digital world. But the difference is he is competing, in my opinion, he's the minority, where in the past he would have been the majority in what the folks wanted to hear. But today his audience, his target audience, may be first interested in hearing what the rumor report is on the Breakfast Club versus what the South African marathon runner did in South Africa, and that's going to be a challenge. And hopefully he can get the high profile like personalities to buy into what he's trying to do, because he's gotten ESPN.com to buy into it. But hopefully he can get the high personalities to buy into it, and they can assist him as he tries to re-energize and essentially in a lot of ways reintroduce the art of journalism.
Yeah, I mean, the takeaway point for me on this one, for all of us, is really to just pay attention to how we get our information and what type of information that we're getting on a day-to-day basis, because it's important journalism is the main leader in information and propaganda and all that type of stuff. Other groups have mastered it. They use their newspapers, magazines to convey messages. And so we look and we always, and even their music, country music and things like that, it's messages in that music. And we always try to figure out, like, what is it that has these people seeming to be like on one page and so unified? Is because these major media streams that get all this information and content out are focused, and 9 times out of 10, there's a central agenda that's consistent in all of those forms, and they match up. Whatever is on the news is in the newspaper, is on the radio show, is in the music that comes out, the albums and the CDs. But for us, our stuff is so disjointed, is dumbed down, is diffused, is coming from somebody else's perspective that doesn't know anything about us, but then it's what we take in. And even in certain cases, it's what we digest and what we reflect out. We reflect those images out. So for us, we've really got to pay attention. We also have to support those things that are true to us, that are going to be truthful, tell the whole story, but then also put us in a positive light. Don't just feed us with all that is bad, but give us that balance that we can look at and say, okay, well, yeah, there are some bad stories, but there are some success stories going on, and give us some things that we can look at that, you know, where we sit, we're always looking for opportunities to improve our state in life. So for me, I take away is just, this is an opportunity for something different, but I feel like it's something that's going to give us that other vantage point that is really something that us as the people can look at and get our thought processes going in a more essential and more effective way.
You don't have to agree with everything that's written on the site, but definitely as we look to shift the consciousness of Black America, and just this whole idea of consciousness of our leadership and the quality that we're being given, whether you agree or disagree with what's written on the site, you have to support a site that's attempting to provide you with facts, and that's attempting to provide you with stories that you may not have heard from a journalistic perspective. So support these guys. Figure out a way to promote them. Figure out a way to have them overtake those media outlets like Bossip and MediaTakeOut or what have you, Worldstar Hip Hop, and really support the idea of journalism. So that's all I got.
Do you declaring war on BS journalism?
Am I declaring war on BS journalism?
Yeah, sound like you declaring war.
I think
Media Takeout.
I'm not declaring. Well, I don't go to Media Takeout. I don't go to Worldstar Hip Hop. I don't go to those things because it's just junk. I don't. I'm not interested in anyone else, but I am interested in the facts, and I'm interested in journalism. I don't care about Chris Brown and Karuchi Chan. I don't care. I really don't. And I don't know why everybody else cares about Chris Brown and Karuchi Chan. I don't care. I really.
Her whole name, dog.
Huh?
Her whole name.
Yeah, what is it?
Karuchi Chan. I mean, you got it. I ain't never known her last name. I just knew Kawasaki.
Yeah, I don't care about her. I don't care what's going on in their life. And I don't know why everybody else do care. You know, you got people out here, you got things that are going on in this world that are important, and they continue to talk about Chris Brown. I don't care about Gary with the T when he got to do the report. I don't care about that. That's not interesting to me. You know, I don't know why the Kardashians are this popular people. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know why Kardashians are that popular. Why are they so popular? And what makes them better than than the girl next door.
Mm.
Why are
Shots
people so
fired.
fascinated?
Shots fired.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to drop the bomb. I'm gonna have to drop the bomb on this segment right here. The bomb. I'm gonna have to drop the Funk Master Flex bomb on this one right here.
You can drop it, but I don't care. I don't. That stuff doesn't. That stuff does nothing for me. You know, to hear about the Kardashians. I don't care. Yeah, so I don't. You know, Chris Brown fighting every week. They need to take his ass to jail. And the other one in Chicago, he need to be in jail. So, you know, don't make me get on that because it really just ticks me off, and I can go down this whole rampage of different entertainment and different things. But for some reason, that's what the people want to hear.
Well, we can get into that, but there's an agenda, man, and I think it goes back to what we talked about, is that there are certain entities that control what goes out. And so when you get enough of it, then you become programmed to want it. And so that's the part of the agenda to keep you looking at that, to keep you hypnotized by that craziness when there's real stuff going on that you should actually be paying attention to. But we got you tricked into believing that this is really something of importance because it's always flashing, it's always in your face. And that's the danger in those type of things. That's why you see people getting crazier and weirder, is because they're getting programmed and desensitized to it, like we've talked about before.
Well, you got people that do that stuff too, just to get on to the Worldstar.
Of course,
because they want to be people that want to be on the Worldstar, and they go out there and do anything that they can just to be on Worldstar.
Exactly, because that's been told to be the way to get fame and to get love and appreciation. Do that, you get a bunch of likes and views. That takes the place, or that's representative of people caring about you and liking who you are and all that type of stuff. It's a whole lot of issues, I think, that are linked to that. But at the end of the day, when it gets to us and it's all over the place, it's on every website, on every front page on the computer, is because an agenda is being pushed. And that's what we have in the dodge. We have in the dodge these agendas that are being put in place to destroy our community.
We're kind of rambling, but I do want to make this point.
Go ahead.
But that's what makes. See, when I read through that playbook, and I thought about it for multiple times. Why is Mr. Whitlock focusing a whole section on LeBron? And then it rung a bell. LeBron is going to be Mr. Whitlock's Jackie Robinson. See, Brian Windhorst has followed LeBron since he was in high school. And Brian Windhorst has been able to make a name out of himself because he's followed a black athlete. He did essentially what Wendell was doing with Jackie Robinson. And so now you don't want to use the word culture vulture, but essentially he's been able to make a name out of himself because of LeBron James. Now, why can't Mr. Whitlock have a whole section dedicated to LeBron, who essentially, to his point, has really redefined this whole empowerment, this whole power circle, and this whole living for a purpose? He's really redefined how the black athlete should approach this idea, and really Jason sees that, and now he's launching on to LeBron since his return back to Cleveland. But Brian Windhorst ain't did nothing but did the exact same thing, was made a name out of himself off of this one person. Mm-hmm. Culture vulture in a lot of ways, you know. That's what Brian Windhorst now. He's the most popular basketball person on ESPN, and what has he done? He ain't played a game of basketball. Right. He's wrote about LeBron James since he was in 10th grade. You see what I'm saying?
And that was his way in the door.
Mm-hmm. And now, we have a digital platform in which Mr. Whitlock is going to essentially propel LeBron James since his return to Cleveland and really compare him to Muhammad Ali, but we question his agenda. See, you question his agenda because you feel like he's been an opportunist. No, he's reporting on the black athlete, which was done historically. As we were forced to do that
in a way that empowers the black athlete outside of just being an athlete.
Yes.
And that is the threat. And so what you're saying with all of that's coming against him and calling Whitlock now a culture vulture, because at this stage in the life he's wanting to highlight LeBron James' story. Could that be the establishment trying to throw mud on this whole program, because it's going to take the black athlete to another level outside of just the sports and what we see on those playing fields?
But it's us, but the guy that, like the ESPN guy, Howard, he's the one that's questioning that approach. He's a black guy. He's a black. If I'm correct in what I'm saying, he's a black journalist.
But this skin color does not mean that you can't be a part of that system. So he could have that skin color, but his agenda could be totally counter of what you would anticipate. So I mean, these are the things you have to look at, and this is why this is such a courageous move right here. It's something that we have to make sure if there's anything that we can do to get it off the ground, because of just that desire to want to kill something that could really change the way that these pieces and this information is put out as it relates to black culture.
So you got guys like Gary with the T that promote he hate the Kardashian, but he forever speaks about them. But and the Beyoncés of the world, that's who they promote. Now you got the Worldstar hip hops that are always constantly talking about Chris Brown going to jail and fighting and all this stuff. But then you have a website that's coming along like the Undefeated that's going to talk about the positive role that LeBron is taking, and you get a lot of criticism on that, and it just shows you the challenge that he's going to have in a world that's really, he's the minority now, and he's trying to present a story that folks are not even educated enough to understand and accept. So, let's get out of here, man.
Let's get out of here. So, but for this podcast and other podcasts and even blogs, check us out, www.freelunchpodcast.com. Also, if you got any feedback or commentary that you want to share, we're on Twitter, FreeLunchPodC, and on Instagram. Check us out, Free Lunch Podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us today. We are the Free Lunch Podcast, the hottest podcast duo in the South, telling the Southern perspective. So continue to support us, continue to like us on Instagram, tell more folks about us, and read our articles. So we out of here. Free Lunch Podcast, home of
Mama, I love you. Kids said, hold it down. I show will as I proceed to give you what you need, and for you hating bitches, raise up all these EQT. Let me remind you, make it clear for the third time. We are not the same. I'm on my own cloud, thinking you can get with this. Use your other mind. Come celebrate a king party with a second line. It ain't so trivial, a foreign like Bolivia. We bust shots for hip hop. Can you feel it, bruh? Chant down Babylon, walking in the Exodus, executing vernacular to penetrate the pessimist. Ain't too many that can step is real. Yeah, giving people something they can feel. Big house when the ball drop. Came too far, now we won't stop. See me shine, put some light on their mind. Illuminate the dark, give them sight if they blind. See me shine for the ones that they said I'll never make it. Finally got my shot and I'm gonna take it. See me shine, put some light on their mind. Illuminate the dark, give them sight if they blind.